Hi, I'm Ed Zachary, Director and Service Officer for the Medina County Veteran Service Office. If you're a veteran or a widow of a veteran and you need assistance in filing a claim with the Department of Veterans Affairs, give us a call, 1-844-722-3800. That's 1-844-722-3800.
Did you buy the flashlight and the batteries?
Yes.
Did you make sure we're not missing anything in the first aid kit?
Yup.
Did you go through the plan with the kids again?
Yes.
The more you prepare today, the more you'll be able to reduce the devastating effects of a tornado, an earthquake, a power outage, or any other disaster. Get a kit, make a plan, be informed. Visit ready.gov.
Welcome to this month's Salute to Service, and with me today I have Mr. Chuck Juray. Chuck, how you doing?
Fine, sir.
Chuck is an Army veteran, correct?
Yes, sir.
Vietnam, right?
Yes, sir.
So, Chuck, tell me a little bit about how you got into the Army.
Well, I joined in 1968 because my two brothers were in the Army, and I had a brother that was in the Navy, and I decided to join the Army.
So you weren't drafted?
No, sir.
Enlisted. So a lot of people think that, Vietnam era, everybody was drafted, and it's kind of not true. I mean, most people, large percent actually enlisted also. Everybody wasn't a draftee. Any difference in being a draftee or an enlisted guy that when you went into basic?
Pretty much the same. The people that got drafted was 2 years, and the people that volunteered was a 3-year.
Oh, so you had the longer commitment.
So I had the longer commitment.
Where'd you grow up at?
I grew up in Cleveland, West Park area.
Okay. So did you join right out of high school, or?
I quit the high school 11th grade, and when I went in the military, I got my GED from them.
So were you 18, or did your mom and dad have to sign for you?
I was 17.
So your mom had to sign. She didn't mind signing, or?
No, she was like, okay, if that's what you want to do. So we signed up in Lakewood, Ohio.
So what branches was your brothers in?
Two of the brothers were in the Army, and the other one was in the Navy.
So what made you choose the Army over the Navy?
I don't like water.
But your brother didn't tell you they eat much better than the Army guys. So where'd you ship off? So 1968 you said?
Yes, sir.
Where'd you ship off to?
Went to Fort Knox, and then did my basic training there, and then we went to. They put me in the 24th Infantry, so we went on Reforger 1 to Germany.
Oh, okay.
That was with the 24th Infantry. They wanted to see how fast we could get over there, so we flew like in a C-41, and you're just sitting there, and it's going, and you're doing this for like 8 hours.
Right.
We get to Germany, we catch a train, we get our trucks, and then we camped out in the cold snow for about 4 months.
Did you get any beer?
Yes.
Well, that was a good trip then, right?
The Flippies, 18% alcohol.
So what did you think of basic training? Was it tough, or?
It was pretty rough.
Yeah.
Back in those days, it was rough. We had like misery, agony, and heartbreak that we had to climb up with full gear and everything. And when I was in, like in '68, the Army was like the Army was, tough.
Right.
Later, come down the years when people volunteered for it, they were light on the guys.
Right.
You go in the mess hall and you can order hamburgers, hot dogs, and all
Right.
that. But
Yeah, it's a nice place now. It's like Burger King.
yes, it's,
So let me ask a question. So the guys, your drill sergeant and your cadre and all that, were most of them Vietnam veterans, or were they World War II or Korea veterans, or a mix? Or
I'm really not sure on that question,
Yeah.
if they were in Vietnam or not.
I'm just curious because I know, I mean, obviously there's a war going on. So, I mean, I would assume that most of your guys that you went to basic with probably went over to Vietnam that year. That was a huge buildup period, wasn't it?
Yes, most of them did go.
So where was 24th Mech at?
24th Infantry.
Yeah.
That was in Fort Riley, Kansas.
So you went to Fort Riley after basic and AIT, and then they sent you over to Reforger for a few months.
Right.
So how'd you get to Vietnam?
I come back from Germany, and they says, we have orders for you to go back to Germany. And I'm like, I don't think so. The snow was like in the pup tents like this. I mean, you had to melt snow to drink coffee because the water tanks would be frozen. And I said, no, I don't think so. I'll go to Vietnam, thank you.
Wow.
And they said, what? And I said, yeah, so I'll volunteer to go to Vietnam.
So was it just you, or was it the whole unit that went over?
No, it was just me.
Just you. So you came down on orders to go to Vietnam. And what was your job in the Army? What was your MOS?
It was a 45 Kilo 20, which was a turret mechanic. I repaired the tank turrets on the 48s and M60s.
Okay. So a lot of tanks in Vietnam, or I mean, you don't see a whole lot of tank warfare over there usually.
There was a lot of tanks
Was there?
in Vietnam.
So when did you ship over to Vietnam?
70.
1970.
Yes.
Where'd you fly out? I mean, how'd you get to where you were going?
I believe we left Fort Lewis, Washington, and landed in Long Binh.
Okay. And so were you in Long Binh the whole time, or?
No, I was there for a while. When we landed in Long Binh, we got out of the plane and you could see all these bodies and body bags lined down the runways that they were going back home.
Huh?
You know. But I went to a little place called Zien. That was our rear echelon. And then we were pretty much all around Vietnam. We went into Cambodia May of 70.
So what unit were you with over in Vietnam?
11th Armor Cav.
11th Army Cav.
11th ACR.
So I mean, so most guys, when I ask them, I said, so you know, when you got orders to go to Vietnam, what'd you think? But you actually didn't get orders for Vietnam. You said, I'll go. So you know, what's your mindset other than you don't want to go in the snow?
That was my mindset, because I really froze out there in Germany. But when I had come back from Vietnam, they said, you know, basically the same thing. We're going to send you to Germany. And I thought, nah, I'm going back to Nam. You know, I mean, the first tour was good, you know, no problems, nothing, you know. So I went back for a second tour. I don't know if that was the PTS or what happened.
So you took getting shot at in hot weather over snow and beer.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you. So you went back, you did 2 tours over there.
Yes.
So, I mean, when you hit the ground over there, I mean, obviously, you know, maybe on the airplane ride over there, you're thinking, wow, I should have went to Germany or something. I don't know. But what's going through your mind when you're going over there? I mean, you know you're going to war.
I really didn't think much about it when I went over for my second tour, because I was thinking how good my first tour was, and I thought, you know, I didn't really see any firefights the first tour. So then when we went over for the second tour, we went into Cambodia, and you know, we had just moved in there, and the Navy had set up a berm all around, and we had our twin 40s set up, and they tried to overrun us one night. There was a girl that was 16 years old of the mortar team, and the rest of them were all kids, and there was like 600 of them. Yeah. And they tried to overrun us, which they never did. Right.
So the first tour you were back on a base and the tanks would go out, and the second tour you actually went up with all the tanks
with
and everything.
With the tanks.
And I know you had some pictures there of 11th ACR from the newspaper going into Cambodia and stuff, which probably wasn't talked about for many, many years, I assume, but somehow got in the newspaper back then.
Well, my brother was living in Alabama at the time, and he cut those out of the newspaper, the Alabama newspaper, and he had sent them to me. Mm-hmm. And when I went in for to make a claim for PTSD, they said I wasn't in Cambodia. So I took these newspaper clippings, and I give them to the VA, and they says, yeah, I guess we can't deny this.
Yeah.
You know, it's
well, you know, and it's amazing because, you know, when we talk about, I don't want to talk about the claim or anything, but when you talk about evidence for claim submission, I mean, you'd be surprised what can work sometimes. Sometimes letters with, I've seen letters with postmarks on the outside of the envelope to prove people were in places at certain times. I've seen newspaper articles. There's all sorts of things you can use as evidence, as long as it's true and real. I mean, so the newspaper articles work for you. So you got shot at the second time. You didn't go back for a third tour after that, right?
No, that was enough.
So what's the one thing that, if you had to say, that you remember from Vietnam, that's, and I don't mean bad or good or anything like that, but maybe that you brought home that changed you as a person for the rest of your life and made you who you are today? I mean, is it the camaraderie? Is it the knowing that country from our country? I mean, what was the shift over there?
Yeah, it's really hard to answer because, like I said, when I got back from Vietnam, I had PTSD for all those years.
Mm-hmm.
I would drink like a 5 and 12 pack a
Right.
day.
Right.
Wake up in New York, didn't know how I got there. All these years I went through, and I didn't know I had PTSD until when I had back surgery and had nothing but time on my hands. I would be hallucinating that the VC would be coming or something because. So when I went in, I seen the doctors, and she says, "You got PTSD."
Yeah.
Because I was having road rage, stuff like that, and.
Well, there's a lot of people that don't realize what they have until many years later, and someone tells them. I mean, you don't identify it yourself; someone else does.
This was a lot of years later,
Yeah.
and I go in a restaurant today, and I sit where I can see the door, who's
Right.
coming in. I think every veteran pretty much has that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a certain amount of, even if you don't go to combat, there's a certain amount of awareness that I think vets have that normal civilians just don't. So were you married when you went over there, or you were a single guy?
No, I was single.
So you came back to New York City for a while, you said? And,
No, I come back to Ohio,
Yeah.
Cleveland.
So when did you get out of the service?
I got out in January of '71.
So you did almost 4 years, pretty much,
Right.
3 years, with 2 tours in Vietnam. Well, that's pretty impressive. I mean, that's quite a bit for out of 3 years. How did the Army change you as far as, who you are today with, I mean, do you think the Army makes you grow up? Does it develop you as a person or anything like that?
Yes, it does. I mean, I'm neat housekeeping. I usually put corners on my bed still.
Your wife likes that, I bet.
And I make sure my gig line's straight. Everything's good.
Yeah.
And the military taught me a lot.
It does, yeah.
You know.
So when you came back home, I mean, what did you see when you came back home to the United States? I mean, the war was still going on actually in '71. It was kind of on the downside. But what did you see? How did you feel as a Vietnam vet coming back to Cleveland?
It was all right. I mean, I'd still be over there even when I was home.
Mm-hmm.
I would smell diesel fuel, which would re-trigger it that I'd be back over there in
Right.
Nam, or hear a helicopter, I'd go back, see a green Jeep OD going down the street, I'd be back.
So a lot of people come back and they say, well, we were treated poorly. And I think, from what I've heard, is it depends on where you were at in the United States. And it seems like, a lot of guys came through California, and that wasn't the place to be as a veteran back then. But how did you feel as though Cleveland treated you? I mean, was there a lot of hostility towards vets in the Cleveland area, or was, did you feel as though you were welcomed home and everything was good? Or
I was pretty much welcome home.
Yeah.
I really didn't have that type of thing. But you're talking about going back to Oakland. I talked to a veteran yesterday, and he got back out in '68, and he said he went through Oakland and they treated him bad,
Yeah.
throwing stuff at him and that. Well, I was the same way when I come back in '71. I come through Oakland and they treated us bad, like we were baby killers and this and that. But they don't realize they weren't over there
Right.
that we had 16-year-old girl leader of a mortar team with a bunch of other kids trying to kill all of us.
right?
So
Yeah, I hear that a lot. It seemed like coming through California, the experience wasn't good, but once people got home, in different parts of the country, it wasn't as bad. You know what I mean? So, So when you came home, did you join any of the, I know you're part of the DAV now, join any of the veterans organizations?
I joined the VFW. I was a past commander of one in Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for a year, and then I was in the AMVETS and the American Legion. And
how'd you get out here to Medina?
I don't know.
When did you move to Medina?
It was about 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah. So you and your wife just picked up and came out here?
Oh, Kathy and I we were originally living in Cleveland, and then I lost my job and I sold everything and we moved out to Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
So we lived out in Las Vegas for 11 years.
Okay.
And then when we moved back here, we stayed in Brunswick for a few years and then bought a house in Medina.
Okay. So you like it out here?
I love it.
Yeah, it's a nice place.
I love it.
I always say Medina's a great place to be a veteran.
It is.
So what are you active in out here now? I mean, what groups are you active in?
The DAV and the VFW and.
So tell me a little bit about your position in the Disabled American Veterans. What do they do? I mean, so our viewers know, like, what do these groups do?
The DAV is an organization that helps disabled veterans, and we do like forget-me-not drives. We have a thing at the fairground in August, trying to recruit new members, which the DAV will help anybody that needs to get help disabled, putting in claims, so on and so forth.
Right. Do you feel there's a sense of camaraderie with, so with the younger vets? I mean, you joined when you came home. So a lot of the younger vets, they're not joining. So do you think there's a benefit for them to join as far as camaraderie goes and talking to people and things like that?
Oh, absolutely. I think for the Iraq and the vets of that, the younger vets should join the DAV. It's a good organization. We don't ask much of anybody, just come to the meetings, and then again, like I said, if they need help putting in a claim or whatever, we're more than happy to help them.
Yeah, DAV does a lot of work. I mean, our office is accredited with the DAV and as well as the VFW and the Legion and several other organizations, but they do on a national level a lot of good work for claims for veterans. In all those groups, they need members because numbers equate to the lobbying efforts and everything they do in Congress for our veterans, and they do a lot of good work. So Medina County only has one DAV though, and we're in Medina.
We're Chapter 72
Chapter 72
Medina.
In the city of Medina.
Yes,
when
sir.
do you guys meet?
We meet on the second Tuesday of the month, and we meet on Broadway Street,
Yep.
is it?
Yeah, at the Medina Veterans Hall.
Yes, sir.
Which VFW you belong to?
I belong to one in Medina.
One in Medina too?
Same one you belong
Yeah,
to.
okay. So I actually belong to the one in Brunswick, so I
did,
I live in Medina.
and I transferred over to
Medina?
Medina.
Yeah, okay.
Which, then again there, we're losing veterans left and right because a lot of them were World War I veterans that were in the VFW. They're pretty much passed away. We got the World War II veterans now that are kind of easing out, and the VFW needs members, young members, and it's a good organization to join.
Yeah, the Vietnam guys are pretty much running everything now. They're at that age where they're all retiring and they're all doing quite a bit, but they're getting older too, and the younger vets need to step up and it's not a lot of time really. It's not a huge commitment, and it's important to join these groups that support our veterans nationally and locally. I got to ask, so anything that you would tell our viewers about the military that you think is good, bad, or indifferent, on why someone should maybe join the military today?
Oh, the military is great to get into, to join whichever branch you want to get into, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. You can make a career out of it. They send you to school, give you food's great. I mean, you can't say enough about joining.
Yeah. And you walk out with, a lot of people think, well, you join the military to help you grow up. I don't know if it helps you grow up, but it does teach you a sense of responsibility and, a good work ethic and things like that.
Big time. Well,
yeah.
The Marines are proud. I mean, every time you see you were a Marine, correct?
No, I was an Army guy.
Army?
Yeah.
But the Marines, you know, they're like superfied. You know,
Yeah.
they stay together.
Once a Marine,
tight,
always a Marine.
You know, that's it.
Yeah, it's a fraternity with them. So anything that you want to tell our viewers about your time in the service or anything like that before we check off here?
My time in the service was great. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. You know, when we went into Cambodia in May of '70, the funniest thing was that we were going in on our tanks, and we had these monkeys in the trees, and the monkeys were throwing bananas at us. You know, as we go down to, that was pretty hilarious.
So were you eating the bananas?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
They're good bananas.
So do the monkeys peel the bananas, or do they?
No, they just throw them out.
They just throw them at you. Okay.
Yeah.
So you got to peel their own bananas.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in Panama, the monkeys were throwing their own feces at us. Yeah. They weren't throwing bananas or anything. But it sounds like the monkeys over in Vietnam were similar. So any last thing you want to say?
Yeah, this has been a great interview. I appreciate it. And,
I ask everybody when they come on the show, if you had the chance to do it all over again, would you do it?
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks for coming on the show, Chuck.
This gentleman here, if you have any problems, he's at
Medina County Veteran Service Office. If you need anything done with a claim or any kind of help, or just a veteran with a question, we don't have all the answers, but we do try. And we'll see you next month on Salute to Service. Thank you.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
Hi, I'm Ed Zachary with Medina County Veteran Service Office. And if you're a veteran and you're in a crisis, or worse yet, contemplating suicide, I want you to pick up the phone and call the Veterans Crisis Line at 1-800-273-8255. Do it now.
I am the flag of the United States of America. My name is Old Glory. I fly atop the world's tallest buildings. I stand watch in America's halls of justice. I fly majestically over institutions of learning. I stand guard with power in the world. Look up and see me.
I stand for peace, honor, truth, and justice. I stand for freedom. I am confident. I'm arrogant. I am proud.
When I am flown with my fellow banners, my head is a little higher, my colors a little truer.
I bow to no one. I am recognized all over the world. I am worshipped. I am saluted. I am loved. I am revered. I am respected. And I am feared.
I have fought in every battle of every war for more than 200 years. I was flown at Valley Forge, Gettysburg, Shiloh, and Appomattox. I was there at San Juan Hill, the trenches of France, in the Aragon Forest, Anzio, Rome, and the beaches of Normandy, and Guam, Okinawa, Korea, Quezon, Saigon, and Vietnam know me. I was there.
I led my troops. I was dirty, battle-worn, and tired. My soldiers cheered me, and I was proud. I have been burned, torn, and trampled on the streets of countries I have helped set free. It does not hurt, for I am invincible.
I have been soiled upon, burned, torn, and trampled on the streets of my country, and when it's by those whom I have served in battle, it hurts. But I shall overcome, for I am strong.
I have slipped the bonds of earth and stood watch over the uncharted frontiers of space from my vantage point on the moon. I have borne silent witness to all of America's finest hours, but my finest hours are yet to come.
When I am torn into strips and used as bandages for my wounded comrades on the battlefield, when I am flown at half-mast to honor my soldier, or when I lie in the trembling arms of a grieving parent at the grave of their fallen son or daughter, I am proud.
My name is Old Glory.
Long may I live.
Dear God in heaven, long may I live.